Game 7. The two best words in all of sports. Over the last 243 days, 30 NBA teams have battled for 82 games, all in hopes of winning 16 from April to June. For over 2 months, the 16 teams lucky enough to play beyond the regular season have dwindled until we were left with the two very best in the entire world. The Oklahoma City Thunder, who are led by the MVP of the league, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The Indiana Pacers, led by the clutchest player in all of basketball, Tyrese Halliburton. The two have battled for the last 2 weeks across 6 games. However, we still find ourselves in a tie, with both sides taking 3 games apiece. After everything that has happened over the last 3 months of basketball, it all comes down to this. 1 game, 4 quarters, 48 minutes, for a chance at immortality. And if you don't like that, then you just don't like basketball. Rafe and I, fans of these two teams, have everything covered for you for this monumental matchup to decide who will be the NBA champion. But first, we send it to Big X the Plug.
Fantasy move for a 5-0 team, right?
That's right. I'm staying on top of it.
Adam Thielen's had a great year.
Put it here this time, hopefully. We tried to do it last time.
Now recording on my phone.
Sound commented on our Instagram post.
Do this to yourself.
But it's off the tracks. You know how it goes.
It's gonna be a fun one tonight.
It's off the tracks. Jet, it's Rafe. We are back. We are, well, at time of recording this, a little over 24 hours away from Game 7, but when you're watching this, it's tonight. Rafe, I mean, the nerves, they aren't starting to set in. They have set in. They've been here. And dare I ask, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I mean, I'm very excited. Yes, I'm very nervous. I'm very excited to watch this game though. Like, the basketball fan of me has taken over today, I think, just thinking about, what this game is. Kind of like, I've seen posts about previous Game 7s and, the moments that have happened in there and the potential moments that we could have in this Game 7. So, the Thunder fan cap is still on for sure, but right now, for today anyway, I've been kind of, enjoying this as much as I can as a basketball fan. But tomorrow specifically, yeah, the nerves are already there, but tomorrow specifically, they're going to be amplified so much. And I don't know how much I'm going to sleep tonight, because all I'm going to be thinking about is what Game 7 is going to be, both ways, a win or a loss, and what that's going to mean for me and my mental health for the next few weeks. But yeah, I'm super excited for this.
I remember Notre Dame and the run that they went on this past season during the college football playoff, and kind of the anticipation before every game, and that period. I think, it was probably 11 days, I think, or something like that, between beating Penn State and then the national championship game, and there was just so much just sitting and waiting for everything to happen. And being in the house with my roommates, a lot, my good friend Ryan Canfield, he told me, enjoy these moments, savor this moment of anticipation, because you never know when you're going to get it again. And that's kind of what I've tried to do here for these last couple of days, is savor this moment, enjoy this moment as much as I can, despite how nervous I am, despite how, on pins and needles I have been. I mean, how many times is my favorite team going to play yours in a Game 7 to decide who the NBA champion is going to be? I can't imagine that there are many more opportunities like this on the horizon. So I am nervous. I am very cautiously optimistic, but also a little pessimistic. But through all of it, I've really just tried to enjoy and savor this moment, because it's not every day you get to play in the NBA Finals, let alone a Game 7.
Yeah, that's another aspect to this too. Just for this show, is like, it's both of our favorite teams. Like, there's a good chance that this never happens again. Hopefully we both get. I mean, it'd be pretty cool if it happens again, like next year or something. I don't know, which could happen. Maybe we could talk about that later. But I don't know, man. Yeah, it's It's so exciting right now. Nervous, yes, nervous energy. I'm ready for the game to start, but I'm also don't want it to start because I know, regardless of what happens, that's kind of the end of it. Hopefully, it's a happy ending. I'll be okay with it ending if it's a happy ending. But yeah, ready to go. Can't imagine what players are feeling leading up to this right now. I'm sure once they get within the flow of the game, though, it's just basketball at the end of the day, and we could talk about what that basketball is potentially going to look like.
After game 4, this really looked to be the Thunder series to lose. The Pacers they were 1/4 of good basketball away from being up 3-1 with a home game still to go, 3 chances to win 1. But then you saw what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Oklahoma City Thunder did. They evened the series. As desperate as they looked on the court, it was enough to come back and tie up the series. They take game 5. It's really looking like it's going to go the Thunder's way. But then the Indiana Pacers in game 6, an absolutely dominant performance. And we talked about that a little bit in yesterday's video. So if you haven't watched that yet, I highly recommend you do. Really good coverage on that. I really liked what we did. I could have never anticipated the Pacers would have controlled that game, much less been up 30 at the end of 3 when the Thunder had inevitably benched all of their starters. Through the Tyrese Halliburton injury that was being discussed heavily in between games 5 and 6, hasn't really been talked about going into this game because he looked, perfectly fine in game 6. Has this at all? I still think it's the Thunder series to lose. You've got a home game 7, and it's the Oklahoma City Thunder. They've been elite at home all season long, but how much has it swayed of, oh yeah, this is the Thunder series to lose, to this is the Thunder series to lose?
Yeah, I think anytime you get to a game 7, it's really anything can happen. So, at this point, it's sure you could argue that it's the Thunder series to lose, but the Pacers are a team that can come in and win it, and they've done it on the road multiple times this postseason. They've done it on the road in the NBA Finals. So yeah, the Thunder are favored. I don't know how much. I don't know what the line is right now, but Game 7s are dangerous for everybody because, you don't know which of those bench guys, which of those role players are going to have, a good enough game to kind of push their team over the top, or which star player is going to have, one of those iconic performances that wins them a championship. Both teams are going to be desperate. Both teams are one win away from a championship. Both teams are one loss away from getting nothing and the season being over and doing all this work and coming in second place, which isn't going to feel good. Regardless, there's going to be things for both teams to be proud of for sure for getting to this point, but everybody isn't going to be satisfied unless they win this game 7. So yeah, I think you could say it's the Thunder series to lose at this point because they put themselves in a position to have game 7 at home, but at the same time, the Pacers are more than capable in going in and taking this one.
And they definitely are, because you look back to last season playing the New York Knicks. I remember that series very vividly. They went down 2-0 after the first 2 games of the series played in Madison Square Garden. Thought no chance. They even the series up at 2 apiece. They go back game 5 in New York, lose that. And at that point, I thought absolutely zero chance. No chance of them absolutely winning. There's just no way. They take game 6 in convincing fashion, and then they walk into Madison Square Garden in a game 7, and they win. And they dominated that game. They shot, I think, 67% from the field. Since that is the last game 7 that we have seen from this Indiana Pacers team, then we could talk. The Thunder have played in a game 7 last series, or excuse me, 2 series ago already in this postseason. How worried are you that the sample size is small, of course, but are you at all worried that the Pacers are going to have one of those kinds of games?
It does feel like it's coming. I think at the very least, the Pacers are going to have a stretch where they knock down a lot of 3-pointers at some point in this game. It could be almost the entirety of the game or the whole game, but I think you can, I won't guarantee it, but I think, it feels like at some point, at the very least, they're going to go on a run. We know that, but it feels like it's going to feel very big because of how many outside shots they're going to hit throughout that run. I think the key for the Thunder to, stay in the game, and B, give themselves a chance to win that game is to answer that run accordingly, whether that's them forcing turnovers, hitting outside shots themselves, which, I don't want to bank on. I think they'll shoot better. They're a better shooting team at home on the road, and I would think that they shoot better from the outside the last 2 games in Indiana. But at the same time, I could see them being cold still, even at home. So somehow, some way, they're going to have to find a way to answer the Pacers' runs in this game. Couldn't do it in the last game because they weren't forcing the turnovers. They weren't hitting outside shots, and the offense looked pretty jumbled up as a whole along with that. So, yeah, that does worry me. The outside shooting has worried me all series. The turnover battle, which I wasn't completely worried about heading into the series now, is now something that worries me as well because the Pacers have done a good job taking care of the ball. I knew it was going to be hard for the Thunder to turn them over in this series, but what has worried me a little bit is how careless Oklahoma City's been with the ball. That's going to have to change as well. But yeah, 3-point shooting, not looking forward to what the Pacers have in store in this game.
Well, and I think that another point is, and it's kind of funny enough that this is kind of a talking point, being as the Thunder are the second youngest team to ever play in the NBA Finals. They're the youngest team in the NBA right now. They've played in a Game 7 this season. And for better or for worse, the Pacers have not. So there is that experience, and the series looked a little similar to Denver. The script, as they call it. I mean, it's 6 for 6 really right now. You lose a close game and a buzzer beater in Game 1, dominate, lose again, win back-to-back games, a gritty win to take Game 4, lose convincingly on the road, and then you come back and you win by 32 points. Is that I mean, we talk about the Pacers and their Game 7 from last season. Is this going to be another repeat? I mean, is this going to be a repeat of Game 7 that we saw earlier this year?
I mean, as a Thunder fan, you can look at that and convince yourself, wow, this is setting up exactly how we want it. But I will say that this Pacers team is a much better team than the Denver Nuggets were. So you can't, I mean, yeah, it's fun to look at that and be like, oh, well, yeah, we're going to win Game 7. But I don't think you can sit here and just say that outright because, like I said, the Pacers, they're a much different team than Denver for one, but they're a much better team as well. While, the Nuggets have one of the best, players in the world, if not the, to a lot of people. That was pretty much it. A little bit of Jamal Murray throughout the series, a lot of Aaron Gordon early in the series. So, different teams is fun to look at, but yeah, I wouldn't guarantee a Thunder win in Game 7 just based off of that.
I think another interesting point with Game 7s is experience. Kind of piggybacking off of that, you compare these two head coaches, and I think I don't want to say that just yet, but you look at the ages of these two coaches and their coaching experience in general. Mark Daigneault, he fits in perfect with that Thunder roster when it comes to age. He's just 40 years old, which to be here on this stage at 40 is wildly impressive, and no one's going to disagree with that. Rick Carlisle, on the other hand, he's the oldest coach to win a finals game in NBA history. He is 65 years old. He's been here. He has a ring. Some are calling it 2011 with the Mavericks. It's one of the most impressive rings, if not the most impressive ring in NBA history. Is how big of a factor is that experience at the head coaching level?
I mean, I think it's certainly a huge factor. And we can go back to that Denver series again, and the whole fouling situation that the Thunder went through to lose them that first game. And everything there, like I think that's something that kind of goes unnoticed when people talk about the Thunder's youth is, yeah, the head coach is young too in terms of experience, and the coaching staff is young. This is their first NBA Finals as well, as well as a lot of NBA a lot of the players on this roster. So, now I will say, like, once you get into the game, I think it's the game. You game plan for the team, even though, yeah, it's a huge game. So I think it is a factor, and there may be situations that have come up already in the series where, Rick Carlisle handled them a little bit better than Mark Daigneault. But at the same time, I think, Daigneault's done a good job. I think he's done a good job adjusting minutes for Shea, especially in that game 4, to really give him as much time as he needed in that fourth quarter to win that game. So yeah, there's been ups and downs, I think, with Daigneault in the postseason. I think regular season, is much different basketball, but he did well in the regular season. There's been some things where you kind of scratch your head at it in the postseason, but overall, I think he's done well. Yes, slight edge to Indiana and Rick Carlisle because of the experience, and he's won one of these before. So it's a slight factor.
And you talk about that spread a little bit earlier in the game. The Oklahoma City Thunder favorite is 8.5-point favorites. They're now 6.5-point favorites. It's gone down a couple since that line opened a couple of days ago. I'm not really paying attention to that solely because the Pacers have won, I think, 10 games in the postseason this year where they were the underdog. That's a tied for an NBA record. Hey, just one more, right? But I don't even think that any of that matters. As far as the spread, the point total, which is at 214.5 points right now for those of you that are interested. I don't think it matters. Just because this game is good, and we talked about this a little bit in yesterday's video. This game's going to be sloppy. It's going to be an ugly game. I can't imagine that this is going to be very appeasing to the eye. And it'd still probably be considered an instant classic, regardless of that. And we dove into it a little bit yesterday. I want to continue to go into this. Which team is more built for an ugly, dirty, hard-nosed game? And you talked about the offense for the Pacers is a little bit more built for that, whereas the Thunder defense is. But overall, if you had to take a game in an ugly, 93-90 finish, which side are you taking?
I think experience will play a factor into this. And I think the edge a little bit goes to Indiana there. Just because you said, they've kind of been in this situation before last year. They've won a Game 7 on the road in a tough place to play on the road last year. Granted, it wasn't the NBA Finals, but they've done this before. They've gone on the road before and won many times through last year and this year's postseason. So I think I would give a slight edge to Indiana. I think... I don't want to make this an officiating thing either, but I would like to think that officials are going to kind of let the players decide this one. Game 7 NBA Finals, kind of don't want to play football out there, obviously, but I think they're going to, let the physicality be what it should be. I think that edge goes to Oklahoma City slightly, especially their defense. Now, Indiana has played the most physical defense against Oklahoma City in this postseason. They've been the team that has taken it to Oklahoma City the most. So, I'm not going to say that's not going to benefit Indiana's defense either, because they're going to turn around and give it right back to them. So, I'll give, in terms of the sloppiness and everything like that, I would give the edge slightly to Indiana.
I think to that same point, in a sloppy game that finishes low scoring, I would favor the Thunder in that one, just because we've seen that not only in the postseason, but in this series as well. Whereas the Pacers don't score a lot of points, they lose. They tend to lose. This last game was the first game they've won all postseason where they've scored under 110 points. This team has to score to win. I don't think that's a secret necessarily. And I think if I hear 93-90, it's a defensive showdown where maybe the Thunder make a push late and they hit a couple shots down the stretch that they're not allowing the Pacers to get. So when I'm thinking of an ugly, sloppy game, I'm thinking of guys like Luke Wentz-Dort. I'm thinking of guys like Alex Caruso, who are ugly and sloppy players, and they love playing that brand of basketball, physical basketball. And yeah, I hope to everything that there is, that this is not a ref show and this is not a bunch of free throws being shot. It's Game 7 of the NBA Finals. This is the final game of the season. No matter what happens on Sunday, we're going to all wake up on Monday morning and the season is over. No matter what. Let the players decide it. We don't want to hear the whistle going off. There's been too many games in this series, and I think both ways. There have been too many games in this series where there's too many free throws, too much time stoppage. Don't interrupt the flow of the game. Let it flow. Let the players decide it. But to the point of if it gets sloppy and it gets ugly, gets pretty physical, I think I would favor the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah, it could go either way really, and that's just another theme of how closely similar these teams are, and we've been talking about it all series. Like there's pros and cons to all this for both teams. I feel like Shea's a guy that likes to get to the free throw line. He gets points there, but at the same time, like with the stoppages, the Pacers obviously don't want a bunch of fouls called because they like to play fast. That's their rhythm, is to get out and go. So like there's so many pros and cons in different ways, and the defense, like allowing defenses to play physical, yeah, that's an edge for Oklahoma City, but I think teams they've played already kind of got caught up in the officials and the free throw thing with Shea, to where they just got frustrated. But the Pacers, they've done a good job of matching the physical defense with Oklahoma City, and like I said, just giving it right back to them. So they kind of make up that difference a little bit there. So yeah, I mean, it's really close. I think you can really go either way with that specific question. The only reason I give that slight edge to Indiana is their experience plays into that as well. And we can go. I think you've got two guys also, if a game's close, and Tyrese Halliburton and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who you trust to go get a bucket on the offensive end late in the game. Obviously, we've seen Halliburton do it. However, I've lost count how many times he's done it this postseason. Shai's had a lot of game winners throughout his career as well. Not as many in the postseason, obviously, as Halliburton. So, yeah, there's just so many layers to this and how similar they are, and just the little things where these teams can win in the margins. That's just fun to get into.
And you think about the margins. It's been so important in this series. Which stat do you think is going to be most important in this game? Whether it's rebounding, bench points, turnover, transition points. What area of this game is a must-win?
I think number one on the list, there's a couple, but I think number one on the list is the turnover battle. I think that's been a consistent key to games throughout this series. Usually the team who controls the ball the best is going to be in the best position to win, and usually wins those games. There's been a couple of outliers, obviously game one with the Pacers, and they turned the ball over a lot. They still came back and won. So I think number one on the list is definitely turnovers, because I think rebounding is important as well. But the Thunder have done the rebounding thing was an issue for Oklahoma City last year, and they got out rebounded almost every game. You can look through regular season and postseason, but they made up those possessions, turning the other team over. Like there was a lot of times they were winning possession battles and losing rebounding battles by a huge margin because of the turnovers. And at the same time, you look at the Pacers, and they can maybe have a few less possessions, but because they're a better three-point shooting team, they can make up those margins in that as well. So like, again, there's just so many little things that build off of each other that make this such an interesting matchup, and that's the reason we're at Game 7 right now.
And I think that the turnovers are so important because of the transition points, and that's how both these teams thrive. And that was a big reason why the Pacers won Game 6. But I think that this is going to come down to the bench points. Who's got the better bench? Who is going to be able to get more production when guys like Shai are off the floor, Halliburton and Siakam are off the floor? Who's going to be able to thrive more when the stars aren't out there? And that takes me to my next question for you: is everyone's been talking about, including us, there's always there could be just a random role player that comes out and scores 25 points, and that could be his entire career, but it ends your season.
Yeah.
If you had to pick one player for each side, if you had to pick a Thunder player, if you had to pick a Pacer player, who would they be where we wake up Monday morning and think that was the blank game?
I've thought about this a lot because there's so many guys on either side that it can be. And I feel like it could be a guy that you're not really expecting. I feel like that's usually what it is. TJ McConnell has almost become, it's been 2 games now where he's come off the bench and has been unbelievable. I feel like you could almost pencil it in that he's going to come out and he's going to have another, 15 point game or maybe even more. So I don't want to pick him because I feel like it's almost too obvious at this point that he's going to come out and he's going to be one of those guys. For Indiana, I think I like Ben Shepherd. I think you know, he hit a couple shots last game and might have got him going a little bit. I think I like him to come out and hit a couple threes. It may not be a huge performance, but you know, it'll be where he hits 4 or 5 threes. It's like, man, that really, really hurts. As far as the Oklahoma City side goes, I think I'll look at a guy like Cason Wallace. He had a real good game last time they played at home. I think that might play into it a little bit. You know, Wiggins has had a couple of good games. I think he's a guy that could do it as well. But again, I feel like that's a bit of an obvious pick. I want to go with a guy that maybe not people aren't expecting from this game. So I'll go Cason Wallace because he played well last time at home. He hasn't really had a great series outside of that game. But he's shown that, you know, he can be a guy that can knock down a couple threes as well. And could be a guy.
You took both my picks.
Oh, sorry.
You took
We got to start talking about this before.
Well, I was thinking, my heart just keeps taking me to Ben Shepherd, and I don't know why, because he has not been great this series. But I'll give you some. I don't think it'll be Obi Toppin just because of how he played last game. I want to see it be Ben Mathurin. Why not? You know, let's see him come off the bench. I think when you're talking about firepower off the bench, who on the bench for the Indiana Pacers, and honestly for both sides, who has the highest likelihood and the most ability to score 20, 25 plus points? I don't think anyone other than Ben Mathurin is the answer. And he's due. He is very due for a game. He went that stretch after he got ejected in the Cavaliers series. He had a stretch of games where he didn't play well. There were signs and his minutes were cut, but that game 3 against the Thunder, he played so well, and the last 3 games, not so much. I mean, he didn't cost him game 4, but he was a big reason why the margin was as much as it was late in the game. So he's due for a good game, defensively and offensively. I want to see him come out and get to that mid-range, get to his spots, knock down his shots. He's such a confident shooter. He just needs to see a couple go through early, and I think that once that happens, there is really no putting out that fire. On the other side of the ball, the Oklahoma City Thunder talked about him yesterday. I think it'd be Isaiah Joe. These role players shoot better at home. So when you get Isaiah Joe a few shots, especially the way the Pacers are guarding it, where they seem willing to give the Oklahoma City Thunder open threes, it feels like a guy like Isaiah Joe, if he gets the minutes. You know, Daigneault has not really played him as much in this series, but if he gets the minutes, I could totally see Isaiah Joe coming out. And I'm not talking just, you know, hitting 3 or 4. I'm talking I could see Isaiah Joe coming out and scoring 20, 25 points. And you're a Pacers fan and you're sitting there the next day and you're thinking, wow, Isaiah Joe just ended my season. So I think that my heart was taking me to Ben Shepherd, but I think it's more likely for it to be Ben Mathurin. And then my heart was taking me to Cason Wallace, but I think it's more likely for it to be Isaiah Joe. So I'm going to be very, very curious to see who it's going to be, who's coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But then we've got these multiple guys in front of us from the starting lineups who are absolute stars of the game, some superstars. You've got Shea and Jalen Williams. You've got Pascal Siakam and Tyrese Halliburton. Which duo do you think will play better?
Man, that's such a tough one because, I mean, I think both of them play really well in this game. This feels like picking a winner here almost. Like it feels like whichever duo, the role players are going to be important, but it feels like whichever duo is able to, you know, get in a rhythm first and really kind of take control of the game if they can, will probably be a big part in winning the game. I don't know. This is a tough one.
I think you have shoo-ins on both sides. I think Pascal Siakam is certainly going to go out and score 20, 25 points. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to come out and have a really good game. It kind of just comes down to, well, how is Jalen? What kind of Jalen Williams are we going to get? And it's going to come down to, are we going to get an aggressive Tyrese Halliburton that's looking to score and get his team involved? I think that's what it's going to come down to, because you know what you're going to get from Shea, you know what you're going to get from Siakam.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's what makes it so tough because, you know, the high and lows of Jalen Williams, and the inconsistencies of aggressiveness with Halliburton, as you just said. I'll say this. I think you can bet more on Tyrese Halliburton coming out and being aggressive because it's Game 7 of the NBA Finals. He has to. I think he understands that. I think the Pacers understand that, and their coaching staff understands that. With the Jalen Williams inconsistency, it doesn't come from, a lack of aggressiveness, or it just comes from, missing shots, missing shots that he usually makes. Sometimes he's not getting downhill as much. So I'll say Halliburton and Siakam, because I think Halliburton has a lot more control over getting done what he needs to get done rather than Jalen Williams, who I'm not saying, he's not going to go out there and try hard or anything like that, but it's just sometimes you just miss shots, and that's been the reasons of the low games for Jalen Williams. So I'll go that way. I'll go with Halliburton and Siakam.
I do think I agree. I do think I agree with that, because I think you're right when it comes to Halliburton. It's Game 7, so there's no reason to not be aggressive. There's no reason not to empty the clip. Whereas, Jalen Williams is, he could empty the clip and he could play aggressive, and he's still not playing well. I think when Halliburton plays aggressive, he plays well. I can't really think of a game off the top of my head where Halliburton has played aggressive, and I'm thinking back on that game, man, he played really bad tonight. No, when he plays aggressive and he can get in the paint and he gets his shots, that opens up everything that for not only Tyrese Halliburton's offense, but the Indiana Pacers offense as a whole. So I think he's absolutely going to play aggressive, and that's going to help Siakam play even better. But I could definitely see it going either way. The final question, the question that this is the big one. We have played 6 games to this point. Got a Game 7.
We've got one
in Oklahoma City. Who is going to be the NBA champion, and who is going to be the Finals MVP?
Okay. Well, to start off, I'm not going to change my pick. I picked them at the beginning, before this series started. Had them in 7. I'll go with the Thunder to win Game 7 at home. As far as Finals MVP goes, I think it has to be Shea. I think Jalen Williams was making a push there. Another big game from Jalen Williams, I think, maybe starts a conversation, but I think it would have to be another, 40-point game to have that conversation. I don't think that happens again. So if the Thunder do pull it out and we're deciding Finals MVP, I think it does go to Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
For me, I did this bit at the beginning of the series. I'm going to do it again.
Sure.
Because I didn't do this in January when Notre Dame was in the national championship game. I picked Ohio State. I picked Ohio State to win, and I look back on it, and I'm thinking, man. And I'm not making that mistake again. So I'm going to say this. And up until Thursday night, no one has ever been able to say this sentence. To win the NBA Finals Game 7. And my Finals MVP, I'll probably take Pascal Siakam. But there's a lot pinning on that, because if Tyrese Halliburton comes out and plays phenomenal, then it almost goes to him. I don't think it will. I definitely don't think it will. But I see an argument for a guy like Andrew Nembhard. He's played phenomenal defense in this series. And now, granted, Shea is he's averaging 30, if not just under, in this series, but he's been really good for the Pacers all postseason long, all season long. TJ McConnell, man, what if he gets but I think
he's at least worked his way into somewhat of a conversation in the past 2 games.
Right.
He puts 3 of them together. You say something at least.
Right. But I'll take Pascal Siakam. He has been the most consistent player all postseason long for the Pacers. Man, it's crazy to me that not tomorrow at this time, but tomorrow night, one of us is going to be extremely happy, and the other, it's going to feel like the sky is falling.
Yeah.
And regardless of what that result is, we're both going to be back here on Monday, and we're both going to be talking about about this game, with everything unfolded. But I could not be more excited. Give me the Pacers in 7. I got nothing else. I mean, I can't wait.
Can't believe we're here.
Wow. I mean, you can't write it better than this.
Mm-mm.
You cannot write it better than this for the Pacers and the Thunder on a personal level.
Yeah,
For the Pacers
for
and the
us, yeah.
Thunder to be in a Game 7 in the NBA Finals.
It's crazy.
This doesn't feel real. This just doesn't feel real.
Doesn't.
Thank you guys so much for going on this journey with us a little bit here. Through all the playoff content, thank you guys for sticking with us. It's not over yet. We've still got one more game to be played, but just want to give us some appreciation for those of you that have been here and watching these videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's Off the Tracks. Peace.